"Hello, listeners, watchers, dreamers, and snack seekers," cried a small figure standing atop a wobbling barrel. "If your hands aren't full, please clap. If they are full, eat first, clap later." The barrel belonged to Kip Flint, best described as a spark wrapped in freckles and patched sleeves. Where Kip stood, trouble followed, but it usually arrived laughing. Beside him, anchoring the barrel with one massive palm, was Bram Boulder, a man of kind eyes, quiet words, and shoulders like the gates of a fortress. Bram was arguably the strongest person in Thundervale. Kip was arguably the loudest. Together, they were an argument the Empire never quite won. They were in the market square of Cobbles, a village famous for bread so crusty it had to be negotiated with. Today, Cobbles had another claim to fame. It was where Kip and Bram intended to announce their latest job. "Ladies and gentle goats," Kip went on, pointing at a billy who was chewing a price tag, "we come bearing a cart, a cauldron, and certified culinary courage. Have spoon, will travel. Bram, exhibit the cauldron." Bram lifted their beloved, dented green cauldron, Griselda, with a single hand and set her on the barrel. She gave a dignified bronze thrum, as if clearing her throat. "We make stone soup," Kip declared. "Yes, with stones. No, not to break your teeth, to open your hearts. Everyone adds one ingredient, everyone eats. That is law." Kip lowered his voice. "Controversial law, I know. But delicious." A boy asked, "What if I only have a carrot?" "Then you've already improved the world," Bram said, smile like sunrise. From the edge of the square came the clomp-clomp of iron. Imperial boots. The crowd's chatter thinned to threads. A wedge of soldiers entered beneath banners stitched with the governor of Hunespire's seal. A hand squeezing wheat until it turned to coins. At their head rode Sergeant Pritt, who loved laws like other people loved grandchildren. "You two," he said, pinching the air toward Kip and Bram, "are distributing unlicensed morale." "Just soup," Kip chirped. "The morale is a garnish. The governor has learned that a certain stone of plenty has resurfaced in Thundervale," Pritt announced. "A relic that can feed armies. You will surrender all stone soup implements for inspection." Bram placed himself between Pritt and the cauldron. "Griselda," he rumbled, "does not go anywhere without a polite invitation." Kip leapt down from the barrel and patted the cauldron. "She's shy. Confiscate the pot," Pritt ordered. Soldiers advanced. Villagers hesitated. Then a grandmother thumped her cane between Griselda and the nearest spear. "Stone soup fed as last frost," she said. "You can look at my bowl, Sergeant, but you won't take my neighbor's." Courage is catching. The market closed around Pritt like a fist. He had the numbers, but not the appetite for a riot. He settled for a snarl. "The governor will hear of this. Send him our compliments," Kip said, beaming. "And a recipe." Pritt wheeled his horse. "You'll regret this." "Possibly," Kip muttered as the troops clomped off. "But later. For now, onions." They cooked. People brought carrots, leeks, a turnip shaped like the governor's nose, which was chopped with great ceremony. Laughter returned, clattering against rooftops. Children perched on barrels to watch Bram stir. He did it with a movement so steady that birds used the rising steam as a warm wind. When bowls were empty and mouths full of compliments, the village elder, Gaffer Tyne, tugged Bram's sleeve. His beard was a cloud with opinions. "The sergeant's not wrong about one thing," he said. "There is talk of a stone of plenty. It's no trinket. It makes food where there is none." Kip's eyes brightened. "Ah, a cheater rock." "Not cheating," the elder said softly. "Teaching. The stone favors generosity." In greedy hands it does nothing but sit like a scold. In generous hands, well, he gestured at the empty cauldron. It's as if Griselda had a twin that never runs out. Bram's brow furrowed. If the governor thinks it feeds armies, he'll take it from everyone to feed his. And starve the Valley of Kindness, the elder said. The stone stories lead toward Echo Ridge. That's all I know. Kip and Bram exchanged a look which meant adventure with inadequate footwear. That night, they loaded Griselda into their cart, hammered the wheels until they lied about being round, and set off. The moon rolled beside them like a silent drum. Thundervale spread out, a patchwork of fields, bristling woods, and little stubborn villages that refused to be told what to celebrate. They passed Whistle Bog, where frogs practiced opera, Murmur Pines, where even owls whispered, and the Wobble Bridge, which swayed not from wind but from opinions. By dawn they reached Echo Ridge, a spine of cliffs casting long shadows over a sleepy hamlet called Hark. Hark was famous for listening. Its inns had hushed chairs and the best eaves in the valley. Kip and Bram took rooms at the Ear and a Half, whose sign depicted a very committed ear. The innkeeper, Mrs. Thistle, poured tea that tasted like secrets. "We hear things," she confessed, "including that soldiers are sniffing around for a miracle pebble." "We're sniffing for it too," Kip said, "but with better table manners." Mrs. Thistle's eyes twinkled. "Then you'll be wanting to visit the Hall of Echoes. They say it remembers conversations that haven't happened yet." "Like prophecy?" Bram asked. "Like gossip with a calendar," she replied. They went at dusk. The hall was a natural cave with walls smooth as thought. Kip cupped his hands and shouted, "Hello." The echo returned. "Hello. Hello. Hello. Follow." "Did it say follow?" Kip whispered. "Or you said it and want credit twice," Bram said. They walked deeper. Torches hummed. Their footsteps became a drum. Somewhere above, a sleepy bat produced a yawn that sounded like a tiny door opening. At the cave's heart they found a pool so still it invented patience. An inscription around the rim read, "Feed the echo you want to hear." Kip frowned. "We should say something generous?" Bram kneeled, cupped water, and spoke as if to a shy child. "We will cook for whoever is hungry. We will share what we find." The pool shivered. Images skated across. A stone glowing like bread from the oven. Soldiers marching. A governor grasping and grasping until his hands closed on nothing. Then the water darkened into the face of a woman with frost in her hair and laughter tucked at the corners of her mouth. "The stone is a listener," she said, voice like distant bells. "It repeats what it hears most." "Who are you?" Kip asked, dazed. "A caretaker," she said. "Once I was called Marrow of the Ridge. I guard our valley's echoes. What we tell ourselves over and over until it becomes true. The governor's men chant fear. You chant feasts. Where is the stone?" Bram asked. "Between need and kindness," Marrow replied. "Find a place where both are noisy. You'll know it by the way your footsteps come back twice." "Why twice?" Kip said. "Because it takes two to share," Marrow said, smiling at them both. "Go south. The 7 sways cross the wind gap there. Many travelers, many hungers. Be quick, boots follow." The vision thinned to ripples. They raced back to town. Already, soldiers were combing alleys with the efficiency of ants. Kip and Bram hitched Griselda, wheels squealing. A spear clanged off the cart's side. Bram didn't look back. They thundered toward the 7 sways, a 7-rope bridge that stitched 2 cliffs like a giant's shoelace. It earned its name honestly. The first sway happened when you stepped on, the second when you realized you had, the third when someone else did, and so on up to panic. At the north end stood a toll house run by Mistress Brindle, who collected payments with a ledger like a lead weight. She barred their way. "Toll, can we pay in soup?" Kip asked brightly. "It's liquid currency." "No," she said, unbrightly. "Coin or turn around." Behind them, a dust cloud of soldiers. Ahead, a bridge like a nervous harp. Below, a canyon with a talent for catching echoes and people. Bram took a breath, then lifted the entire cart as if he were relocating a cat. The toll house gasped. Kip saluted Mistress Brindle with wholly unnecessary formality. "We'll pay you in interest later." "You can't," she began. But they already were. Bram stepped onto the first plank. The 7 sways attempted to introduce them to the canyon. Bram declined with coarse strength and stubborn kindness. He moved like a mountain thinking gentle thoughts. Kip kept the cart balanced while yelling encouraging advice at physics. Halfway across, arrows stitched the air. Soldiers had reached the north bank and were experimenting with pointy suggestions. "Down," Bram said, and they crouched behind Griselda. Arrows thunked the cauldron like rude raindrops. The bridge shivered, outraged. A rope snapped with a sound like a violin breaking up with its bow. "Do you trust me?" Bram asked. "Wildly," Kip said. "Good." Bram heaved. Up, forward, down. The cart landed with a thud on the far side. The bridge chose melodrama and shed 2 more ropes behind them. The last sway became a full pirouette into nothing, leaving the soldiers yelling at the newly inconvenient canyon. They didn't stop running until Wind Gap, where the road spread into a market meadow crowded with travelers pinned in place by a collapsed granary. People were hungry. The smell of smashed grain mixed with worry. Kip climbed the cart. "Friends, strangers, soon to be friends. We heard a rumor the Stone of Plenty might pass this way, and we're here to test another rumor. That if everyone adds a little, everyone has enough. Who'll try with us?" There was a long silence. Then a child raised a potato like a trophy. "I have this." "Hero!" Kip cried. Promotion to Chief of Potatoes. Others followed. A strip of dried meat, a handful of peas, a pinch of salt saved for weddings. Bram set Griselda on her tripod and coaxed a fire that licked wind like an old dog greeting a familiar hand. Soon steam bloomed. The hungry crowd's chatter rose, curious, skeptical, hopeful. From beneath the collapsed granary came a muffled knock. Bram froze, then began to lift beams as easily as a man moving chairs. Under the rubble they found a small cellar door and, behind it, a storeroom the collapse had sealed. Inside, sacks of barley, jars of honey, a crate of river bluestones used to weight scales. Kip picked one up. It was ordinary, cool, grain-specked, comfortingly dumb. He balanced it on his palm and felt a tingle. Not magic, but promise. He looked at Bram. Bram looked back. Neither said this is it. Both felt it wasn't, but that it wanted to be. They rolled the crate near the cauldron. "Add a stone if you can't spare food," Kip told the crowd. "Each stone means you will share when you can." People nodded, solemn without quite knowing why. They picked stones, rubbed them like talismans, and set them in a ring around Griselda. Promise is a spice. As the soup thickened to scented courage, a weathered wanderer pushed through, leaning on a twisted staff. Her hair had the color of old storms, her smile of sudden sunshine. Kip recognized her from the pool. "Marrow of the Ridge?" "In a more portable body," she said. "Echoes walk when they must. You are close to what you seek." "Which is?" Bram asked. Marrow tapped the ring of stones. "Not a single jewel that hoards miracles. A circle of ordinary things made extraordinary by an agreement to share." The governor hunts one object he can own. You're building a custom no one can confiscate. What if he takes the idea? Kip asked softly. Then you tell it louder, Marrow said. Feed the echo you want to hear. A horn blared. On the ridge above Wind Gap, Sergeant Pritt appeared with fresh troops, very annoyed at surviving a bridge. By imperial decree, cease this gathering and surrender the Stone of Plenty. Kip jumped on the cart. Sergeant, excellent timing. We were about to eat. Care to prove your decree is compatible with lunch? Pritt's jaw did origami. Seize the pot. The soldiers advanced, shields locked. Bram stepped forward. He did not raise a fist, he raised his voice deep as drums. The children eat first. The sound rolled through Wind Gap and came back, not once but twice. The cliff answered him as if it, too, were large and gentle. Echo, then echo again. A second voice from nowhere, repeating his words with more room in them. Pritt flinched. What trick? No trick, Marrow said. This is the Stone of Plenty. People making the same promise until even the rocks remember. Try to break it and you will forget what you came for. Pritt hesitated. He had a list of procedures for many situations. None covered arguing with a proverb that had learned to speak. He tried firmness. Last warning. A little girl marched up to him with a bowl. You can have half, she said. Pritt stared at the bowl. He had eaten ration stew his entire career and never once been offered by the people he was tasked with controlling. Something shifted in him, barely, but enough that his spear dipped a thumb's width. Kip saw the wobble and went for it. Tell you what, Sergeant, we'll share with you now. You share with us later by letting this valley keep its customs. That's a trade. Fair is fair. Pritt's men were looking at the soup like it was mutiny in a bowl. The ridge wind tugged at banners. Below, the ring of stones around Griselda glowed only in the sense that hope can shine without light. Stand down, Pritt muttered, shocking himself. For now, he turned his horse. The troops followed, puzzled and relieved. The crowd released a breath big enough to refill a lake. Marrow nodded at the ring of stones. Carry your custom south, she said. The governor will come himself next time. He hates ideas that refuse to salute. Then we'll set an extra place, Bram said. They served Wind Gap until people were fed and opinions sweetened. When night wrinkled the sky, they slept under the cart, heads near Griselda's warm belly. Somewhere, a night bird called again and again, as if trying out the new echo. The governor of Hunespire, Lord Varon Quill, lived in a castle that pretended it had never once been startled. He was a collector of beginnings, the first coin from a conquered market, the first oath from a new recruit, the first rumor of a miracle. He framed them and walked past them with proprietary satisfaction. His jaw was a ruler. His heart kept books. When Sergeant Pritt reported Wind Gap, haltingly, leaving out the part where soup was persuasive, the governor steepled his fingers. A custom, he said, tasting the word like a foreign fruit. Customs are harder to tax. Pritt swallowed. They called it a stone of plenty, sir. A metaphor, Varon sniffed. Metaphors breed insubordination. Very well. I will address this personally. Prepare a patrol. And Pritt, bring confiscation writs. If I cannot seize a stone, I will seize everything the stone is placed upon. News moves faster than orders when news tastes like hope. By the time the governor's company rattled toward Thundervale, Kip and Bram had already turned their cart into a parade that cooked. They traveled from hamlet to hamlet, Pebblewick, Loom on Stream, Kettlefold, holding ring of stone feasts. People kept their promises in little, practical ways. A loaf here, a ladle there, a song to lighten tired arms. The ring grew in every place, invisible but loud. They picked up companions as one picks up burrs and better habits. Tally Soot, a chimney-nimble girl who could steal hats off heads to put them back on straighter. Brother Mudge, a rotund monk who claimed the monastery of accidental oaths had disbanded when every vow turned into a picnic. And Fargle, a goat who had adopted Bram the way weather adopts mountains. At Sifter's Way, they found a square occupied by a traveling inspector named Miss Corva. She wore the Empire's badge but also the expression of someone who had packed a map and found a poem instead. Inspections, she called, voice crisp. Stack your pots. Kip stepped forward with Griselda. She's allergic to stacks. Corva's pen hovered. Name? Kip Flint, soup speaker, Kip said, bowing. This is Bram Boulder, soup stirrer. Together our title is, Mind Your Spoons. Charming, Corva said, not quite hiding a smile. I hear you are spreading a stone custom that interferes with the governor's supplies. We're spreading dinners, Bram corrected gently. Interference is a side dish. Corva studied the villagers. They stared back with the guilty look of people who had been happy recently. I'll tell you a secret, she said to Kip, quietly. I took this post to measure the Empire. It keeps being larger than our maps. Sometimes I think, perhaps the Empire is not the roads and forts, but what people share at day's end. Stay for soup, Kip said. Measure this. She did. When she left behind half her rations and an eyebrow arched in thought. On the fifth day, as they approached Hearth Wharf, the river town, drums rolled like a polite thunderclap. Soldiers lined the quay, banners stiffened. At their center, astride a white horse with better posture than its rider, sat Governor Veron Quill. Kip whispered, remember, polite first, preposterous later. Or both, Bram murmured. Veron inspected them as one inspects flour for weevils. You're the supers. We prefer stewards, Kip said. But we'll answer to anything shouted before a meal. I have come to end this nonsense. Veron lifted a scroll. By decree. Any object used in the propagation of unauthorized customs is hereby the property of the governor. This includes pots, carts, ladles, and, should it prove possible, stones. He gestured. Soldiers stepped forward with an elegant confiscation wagon and inelegant intentions. Bram moved to block them. The governor's eyes lit with a collector's thrill. Ah, he said, strength. The Empire appreciates it. Name your price. A captaincy? A roof with edges? You can have both. Bram said, children eat first, and the river tossed the words back twice. The horses flicked their ears, confused at grammar that had acquired depth. Veron's smile didn't change, but his focus sharpened. You pretend at magic. I prefer mechanisms, and mechanisms yield to authority. Mechanisms obey what you repeat, Kip said. So do valleys. Enough, Veron said. He pointed at Griselda. Take the pot. Soldiers advanced, careful, trained. Kip took a breath that tasted like ideas. New plan, he told Bram through the corner of his mouth. We cater an inspection. Bram's eyes smiled. A serious meal. They worked fast. Kip clambered atop the cart and spun tales that stuck to ears like syrup. How last frosts had been softened by one pot. How neighbors found recipes in each other's hands. Bram fetched water, kindled fire, set Griselda like a queen on a throne of dry wood. Tally danced through the crowd, gathering carrots from nowhere. Brother Mudge produced a rope of sausages from a sleeve that must have been a loophole. Even Miss Corva, reappearing at the edge, slipped a pouch of spices to Kip with a conspirator's nod. Stop them, Varon snapped. But even his men hesitated. There is a command no sergeant likes to give: spoil dinner. Kip addressed the governor directly. My lord, you collect beginnings. Consider this one a feast you allowed. The story goes in your gallery. You can touch it every morning and feel magnanimous. Varon's jaw did arithmetic. He imagined the tale engraved. On this day, the governor permitted sustenance. He enjoyed its weight. Very well, he said, a tight clause. A demonstration. Then your implements are mine. Agreed. Kip lied with the raw sincerity of an optimist. They served soldiers first, strategy masquerading as hospitality, then citizens, then the governor, and finally themselves. Varon tasted the soup and frowned because it had no reason to be this good. What is the ingredient? He asked. Promise, Bram said. Promise, Varon repeated, as if testing a currency for bite. Where do you mint it? In the rain, Kip said, and gestured to the stones people had set around Griselda. They had picked river blues, hearth whites, road browns, and a single black glass bead a sailor swore was the eye of a storm. Varon stared. Those are rocks. Yes, Kip said. And witnesses. Each says, I will share when I can. Together they say it louder than you. Varon flicked a hand. Load the pot. His men moved. The crowd tensed. Kip poised to spring. Bram's fists clenched like ship knots. Then, from the far end of the quay, a bell rang in a particular way that meant boat incoming with a problem. People turned. A barge drifted sideways toward the bridge. Rudder snapped, captain swearing in poetic binaries. Stand aside, Varon commanded, then realized his men were blocking the path of everyone who knew how to fix boats. He tried to thread authority through chaos. It tangled. Bram was already moving, lifting the snub-nosed barge with the help of 3 dock hands and most of physics. Kip scrambled aboard and lashed the broken rudder with the belt he had kept since being 8 and unreasonable. The boat eased through, grazed the bridge, and emerged to cheers from throats that had forgotten who they were supposed to fear. Varon inhaled displeasure. It smelled like losing the room. He could not arrest help without arresting his reputation as a patron of order. He settled for gathering dignity like a cloak. Confiscate the pot tomorrow, he told Prit. At dawn, let them sleep on their inevitable obedience. Kip bowed. We excel at sleeping. When the governor's column clattered off, Miss Corva appeared fully, pen tucked behind her ear. He will come at dawn, she said. Your pot will go if you meet him here. Then we won't, Kip said. Bram, pack the custom. They rolled out at moonrise. But Varon had guessed. At the city gate, soldiers waited in tidy rows, and behind them, a device like a crab made of bridges. A collapsible lattice engine designed to snap up carts and carry them like prizes. Ah, Kip said, admiring despite himself. A clever trap. Bram put a hand on Griselda. We need a cleverer one. Miss Corva stepped forward and did something dangerous. She took off her badge. If this is a choice between measuring the empire and being measured by it, I choose soup. She walked to the lattice engine with bureaucratic confidence. Orders to reposition, she told the crew. You're blocking grain traffic. They blinked, saw a familiar pen, and obeyed that old magic, paper. The engine groaned aside just enough for a cart to slip, if the cart were moved by a miracle. Bram obliged. They slid through. The engine slammed shut behind them, capturing only regret. Thank you, Bram told Corva. I will miss my pen, she said, and smiled like someone who had chosen correctly. They camped by a willow whose leaves practiced eavesdropping. Kip drew circles in dirt. Bram brewed tea strong enough to remember people's names. They debated plans while the river practiced lullabies on a flat rock. "We can't keep outrunning the governor," Kip said. "He collects beginnings, we need an ending he can't pocket." "An ending that is also a start," Bram said, "the way mountains plan surprises." "Right," Kip said. "We need a feast so big it becomes law." Marrow appeared out of shadow, or perhaps out of agreement with their sentence. "Make the valley eat together," she said. "All villages, one circle. The echo will be too wide to cage." "How?" Bram asked. "Find the old road," Marrow said. "The thread that once tied hamlet to hamlet. It remembers festivals. Walk it. Call its name. Lay your stones on it until it wakes." "Where does it begin?" Kip asked. Marrow smiled. "Everywhere. But for flair, Hunespire. Take the governor's love of beginnings and make him host his own undoing." The willow rustled, possibly laughing. The city of Hunespire rose from the valley floor like a stack of decisions. Its streets were angles with ambitions. Its citizens specialized in being important at each other. And yet, through the noise, an older note hummed. The thread rode, half forgotten, running under cobbles and pride. Kip and Bram entered at dawn with a procession of unlikelies. Tally juggling apples because nerves. Brother Mudge lugging a bell he insisted was low in calories. Miss Corva in a plain cloak with her badge tucked where it could not think. Fargle the goat headbutting skepticism. Behind them rolled carts from villages that had never agreed on anything except this. Food tastes better shared. They reached the city's central square, a compass of stone pointing at city offices and also, accidentally, at the heart. Kip vaulted onto Griselda. Bram rang Mudge's bell. The sound rolled down alleys picking up dust and decisions. "Hunespire," Kip shouted. "We bring you a beginning the governor cannot frame. A feast of the thread, tying us all together." Citizens paused mid-importance. Children materialized, as they do for parades and puddles. Shopkeepers emerged holding caution and ladles. Kip chalked a wide circle and set stones upon it. River, hearth, road, storm-eye, leaving gaps like invitations. "Place a stone if you promise to share when you can," he called. "Then bring what you can. If that's nothing today, bring your company. Company is a seasoning." The circle began small and immediately wanted to be bigger. The thread rode under the square gave a sigh, like a belt loosened after a long dinner. Bram set Griselda in the circle's center. Miss Corva unfurled a blank scroll and began to write names as people laid stones. Tally danced gaps into bridges. At the city palace, Governor Veron Quill woke to a report describing a civilian aggregation engaged in culinary sedition. He dressed in impeccabilities and strode to the balcony prepared to disapprove. What he saw unsettled his categories. It was not a riot. It was attendance. He spotted Prid attempting to look stern while holding a bowl someone had put in his hands. He spotted inspectors, scribes, sailors, lamplighters, and a woman who sharpened scissors on Tuesdays. All in the rain, placing stones. "Seize the pot," he told an aide out of habit, then paused as the aide failed to move, pinned by the gravity of everyone else doing something wholesome. Veron thought, "I will break this by starting it." He marched to the square with a smile that practiced generosity like a discipline. "My people," he proclaimed, climbing a crate. "What a fine beginning. I, your governor, shall lay the first stone." "You're late," Kip said, friendly. The crowd tittered. Veron's smile turned thin. "Then I shall lay the largest." Bram offered him a stone the size of a fist. Veron sniffed and chose a stone the size of two. He bent to place it and discovered that the ring had a weight that was not weight. The promise around it pressed like a crowd of polite hands. Difficult, he grunted. Promises are, Bram said helpfully. Varon placed the stone with a grunt shaped like future back pain. The ring accepted it like a host who will let any guest in as long as they behave. Confiscate the pot, Varon tried again, quietly to Prit. Prit looked at the ring, at the citizens, at his bowl, which was no longer empty, and at the echo of children eat first that now lived under his breastplate. With respect, my lord, he said, voice trembling but loyal to something new, not today. Kip caught Varon's puzzled glare and hopped down. Governor, he said, all sincerity and mischief, we've reserved a place of honor, not above, within. Join us. If you do, this story hangs in your gallery. The governor who hosted the feast that fed the valley. That's better than the governor who argued with dinner. Varon imagined the inscription. He liked it uncomfortably much. Very well, he said. A demonstration. Then, no confiscations, Miss Corva said, stepping forward with the blank scroll, which was no longer blank. It now bore a title, The Thread of Shared Tables, followed by a list of names and villages and a sentence that kept writing itself as people joined. We share when we can. We are fed when we need. This is policy now, she said. Not imperial. Local. By whose authority? Varon asked. Corva touched the scroll. By ours. The square stirred. The thread road woke fully. A faint hum rose through stone and shoe leather, as if the city had remembered a song and was shyly humming the chorus. Bram ladled. Kip narrated. Tally distributed bread with the cunning of a saint. Mudge rang the bell whenever someone contributed only a story, which counted more than anyone expected. Fargle attempted to draft goats into a civic militia and succeeded in forming a Chew committee. The ring expanded until it touched the palace steps. Varon stood at its edge, face a civil war between pride and longing. He had spent a life beginning things. He had never truly joined one. A boy approached, bowl in both hands. Half for you, sir, he said. Varon accepted. He tasted. It was barley and kindness, leek and laughter. He looked at his aide to declare something memorable and found himself unwilling. The sentence forming inside him had no place for trumpets. He placed a stone. The square heard it. The echo came back twice. High windows trembled not with threat but with recognition. In the hall of echoes far away, water rippled, approving. Law. Someone cried from the crowd. Someone who had always wanted to write one and had forgotten they could. We vote now. Miss Corva lifted the scroll. All in favor of making the Feast of the Thread a monthly custom binding on every village that wishes to be called Valley Folk. And on every official who wishes to be called helpful, Kip added. Say, aye. The sound struck like weather. It rolled through hewn spire, crossed the fields, climbed the ridges, and tucked itself into the pockets of people still on their way. The thread road flared, faint and bright, a line of ordinary stones teaching each other to shine. Varon lifted a hand. He could veto with a word. He could order arrests, break pots, break people. But he had just been handed a beginning that wouldn't fit in his frame. It was too wide. He lowered his hand. Aye, he said, softly, as if sneaking up on his better self. The square erupted, clapping, spoon-drumming, laughter that shook lint from clouds. Kip threw his arm around Bram. We did it, he breathed. Bram looked at the ring, where a baker was explaining to a mason that yeast and mortar were cousins if you squinted. We did it, he agreed, and meant everyone. The feast lasted until stars argued with dawn and lost. People slept smiling against barrels. Someone embroidered the words "Feed the echo you want to hear" on a banner that would appear in unexpected places thereafter. When morning collected itself, Governor Varon quilled toward the square like a man reconsidering his inventory. He stopped beside Griselda. "I wanted a stone," he said to Kip without looking. "Something to hold." "You still can," Kip said, and pressed a small, river blue pebble into his palm. "Hold this when you forget why you began." Varon closed his fingers over it. "And if I forget again?" "The valley will remind you," Bram said, and the city agreed by humming. Sergeant Pritt approached and saluted awkwardly. "Orders, sir?" Varon's mouth tried to form the old ones. "Found them dusty." "Protect the thread," he said finally. "And see that the children eat first." Pritt smiled like a man who had misplaced a frown and was glad of it. Kip climbed the cart one last time that day. "Hello again, listeners, watchers, dreamers, and snack seekers," he cried to the day, which was the right kind of audience. If your hands aren't full, clap. If they are full, keep sharing. The clap that followed had room for villages, goats, and governors. It set a rhythm that would outlast banners. And somewhere deep in Thundervale, in the Hall of Echoes, the water laughed twice.